All right. So, have you ever heard a joke, right? And it just goes too far. Like you laugh, but then you're like, "Whoa, should they have said that out loud?" It's a tripwire, you know? That line between funny and offensive. And that, my friend, is what today's deep dive is all about, a day dedicated to exploring that very line, International Blasphemy Day. Now, before you think we're diving into a day of just being offensive, let me clarify. We're not condoning hate speech or anything like that. We're diving into an excerpt called, get this, Celebrating International Blasphemy Day, a stand for freedom of expression. Yeah, we're going to unpack the idea itself, see how it connects to free speech, all that jazz. So what is International Blasphemy Day? Well, it started in 2009, thanks to the Center for Inquiry. They're all about secularism and, thinking critically, and they chose September 30th, tied to that whole 2005 controversy. Those satirical cartoons of the Prophet Muhammad in Jyllands-Posten, the Danish newspaper. Remember that? Global protests, huge debates about free speech, the whole 9 yards. But here's the thing. This day isn't about being offensive for the sake of it. It's more like, think of it as a starting point for a conversation. A day to really think about free speech and, honestly, even our most deeply held beliefs. It's easy to avoid these topics, but this day, it's like an invitation to jump right into those uncomfortable conversations about faith.
And it's interesting, this whole back and forth questioning authority, accusations of blasphemy, it's not new. Throughout history, people in power have used accusations of blasphemy to shut people up, to silence dissent. Think about the scientific revolution, for example. Groundbreaking discoveries met with accusations of blasphemy all the time because, they challenged the religious beliefs of the time. Even the fight for basic human rights, which we consider, basic today, was seen as blasphemous back then. It really makes you think, right? But why is criticizing religion specifically often met with such, extreme reactions? Often more so than critiques of other powerful institutions. It gets at the heart of how religion functions in society and how we balance respecting different beliefs with that fundamental right to free speech.
It's true. Religion does seem to occupy this space where even asking questions is seen as, taboo. And to make things even more complex, the source points out that blasphemy is still a crime in some parts of the world. And not just any crime, one punishable by death. This isn't ancient history. This is happening right now to people.
It's a huge issue. You put your finger on it, that tension between respecting beliefs and protecting basic human rights. The UN, they've condemned these blasphemy laws, calling them a violation of free speech. But it's still a debate, a global one, about finding that balance, honoring beliefs and protecting people's right to say what they think. It's messy, no easy answers.
So we're talking about a day, right, where we're encouraged to question even our most sensitive beliefs, the things we hold sacred. But where do we draw that line, between actually thinking critically and just being offensive just to be offensive?
Right, that's where satire can come in, you see. The source highlights how satire, especially religious satire, can be so powerful, for social commentary. Think about it. A really sharp, clever, satirical piece can cut through all the dogma, all the hypocrisy, in ways that just a straightforward argument sometimes can't. Right.
So you're saying a sharp wit can be a weapon, in a way,
Right.
for change. Like, imagine Voltaire, right, with his, biting critiques of the powerful and all that. He'd be the life of the party on International Blasphemy Day, don't you think?
Well, absolutely. Voltaire, he really embodies that spirit, using humor to make us see those uncomfortable truths about ourselves. And the source mentions him, actually, along with Mark Twain, as, prime examples of how satire can expose those flaws, those absurdities, within religious institutions. And by doing that, encouraging people to think critically about them, to question. But the whole idea of satire is not without its risks. And I think the events around Charlie Hebdo, they remind us of that in a very real way. The 2015 attack on their office, after those cartoons, those satirical cartoons of the Prophet Muhammad were published, it just tragically underscores how dangerous it can be to use satire to critique religion. Even in societies where, on paper, they value free speech.
It's a heavy reminder, for sure, that the right to offend can have a high price and that people who cross those lines, they face real consequences. It makes you think about the people who risk everything, even their lives, to challenge those deeply held beliefs. Have you ever had that experience where someone presents an argument, even one that challenges your views, and it actually changes your mind? I know I have. And it's remarkable how a well-reasoned perspective can just shift your whole way of thinking.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's it,
Yeah.
That openness, that willingness to engage, even when it's uncomfortable. It's at the core of International Blasphemy Day. It's not about just tearing down beliefs. It's about having those open and honest conversations, even about the most sensitive topics, where those ideas can be examined and debated without, fear of being silenced or punished.
Yeah.
As the source points out, real tolerance isn't about shielding beliefs from scrutiny. It's about engaging in these conversations, respectfully but critically, even when they make us uncomfortable.
It's like this day, International Blasphemy Day. It's like holding up a mirror, right? To society. It forces us to look at how comfortable we really are with, actually talking openly and honestly, especially about these kinds of sensitive topics.
Yeah, and how people react to this day, the good and the bad. It says a lot about, what we value as a society, what makes us uncomfortable here in the 21st century.
It really does make you think, what does it say about us, when questioning some ideas? It's met with outrage, even violence. But questioning others? Well, that's just called intellectual curiosity.
Right, it makes you think. It's a tough question.
No easy answers there. And we all have our own boundaries, right? When it comes to what's off limits, what we're okay with, and what we're definitely not okay with. So how do we even begin to figure that out, those boundaries? Not just for ourselves, but as a whole society.
And that's the conversation we need to be having, isn't it? It's ongoing.
But I think, if there's one thing we can take away from all of this, it's that International Blasphemy Day, well, it's not really about telling us what we should or shouldn't say. Right.
It's about getting us to have those conversations in the first place, to grapple with those nuances. What does free speech really mean? How do we respect different beliefs? And why is critical thinking so important, especially when it's hard?
To ask those tough questions, have those debates, maybe even find some humor in those places where, we're not supposed to.
Exactly. Because, and I'm going to quote the excerpt directly here, it says, "No idea, however sacred, should be above scrutiny."
Wow. Yeah, that's a powerful statement.
It is.
And on that note, I think we'll leave it there. For you to ponder, join the conversation, let us know what you think. Use hashtag #DeepDiveBlasphemy. We want to hear your thoughts on all this. Until next time, stay curious, everybody, and keep those conversations going.